Going to welcome Judd Plattenburg to the stage. Judd is a Dayton business owner, as well as a photographer, paddler, and sometimes printer. He was born and raised in Dayton, Ohio, and tonight he will tell the tale of a time capsule in the far-off land of Maryland. Welcome, Judd.
Okay, hello. I don't know how I beat that, Ralph. That was a fantastic story. Okay, I have a couple of friends that I know who photograph old and abandoned places. And one day they came to me and said they have this silk mill, abandoned silk mill in Lonaconing, Maryland. It sounded like a pretty cool place to go. It had been closed since 1957 when all the workers went on strike, and it stands in the same condition today. So the three of us met up with a handful of other photographers from around the country, and when we were done, we had a bunch of photographs to post and share, but this place has a pretty unique story. So when the opportunity came up to present here at PK, I thought this is a perfect forum to tell a lost story of American manufacturing. The place is tucked away in the Allegheny foothills of western Maryland, and it sits just like it did on the day it was closed, except now it's covered with overgrown vegetation, broken and shattered windows. It just definitely does not look good. But back in the early 1900s, this place used to employ up to 360 people. Now, the outside was rough, but when we got inside, wow, this place was a time capsule out of 1957. Just how the workers left it. The paint was peeling, but there was personal stuff everywhere just talking to us. In an eerie kind of way, you could almost feel the ghosts of the people that used to work here. A 1957 calendar still hangs, a worker's tools, and a milk bottle, an old pencil sharpener. And there was this green tint over everything as the light coming through the windows just filtered through all the vegetation. It just made everything feel very surrealistic. There was a pop-up thunderstorm happening outside, and it was just a really weird feeling. But the place was massive. The roof leaked everywhere. Support timbers were sagging. I could tell it was just a matter of time before this place wasn't going to be gone. It was built in 1906, and even then, the work stopped for a few months over a labor dispute. And I kind of feel like labor issues were a common thread that ran through this mill. Now, I don't know how silk thread is made, but I do know that raw silk is thrown, twisted, and wound, and I suspect all the spindles, bobbins, and pointy things played a big part in it. For a while after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor with the blockade that followed, we weren't able to get raw silk from Japan, and that really hurt the mill and the employees. These wooden spindles called bobbins were everywhere, stacks and stacks of them, and they all had this deep wood grain that contrasted with the wood on the factory floor. As the silk thread was made, I'm pretty sure it ended up on these 4-inch bobbins that were then shipped to market. One of the photographers with us was a firefighter in his day job, and he kept looking up at this massive big wood beam construction with this funny look on his face, and he told me, if this place burned, we would just stand back. This would be a firefighter's worst nightmare when those big beams started coming down in a fire. That's the last one. We're out of order. So that was kind of leaving the place, looking behind. Hopefully we'll run through them and get back into some of what we saw. Okay, here we go. I found a handwritten note, probably vintage 1957, telling the next shift to wipe down the bobbins before using them. Somebody who is willing to go out on strike and risk their job for 5 cents an hour probably wrote this note. And it was this kind of stuff that put everything into a little bit more personal perspective for us. Names on the machines and workplaces. Somebody named Andrea probably used to run this machine, and this was probably her own little world. There was not a lot of automation back then, and even today, in spite of all the modern technology, the textile industry still depends on a lot of manual labor. Now, this might possibly have been an old scheduling system. Maybe these tickets represent jobs that are in the process the day they went on strike and closed. You kind of got to wonder if these jobs didn't ship, did the people, the customers at the end ever know what happened here in Lonaconing? And then part of the tags possibly ended up on the machines like here. Amazingly enough, these tags are still hanging on the machine, but as we can see, the years and the moisture have really taken their toll on them. It just is amazing to look at this stuff. Now, somehow this machine must have spooled the finished thread onto the bobbins. I don't think worker safety was real important back then, so I don't think safety features were big on these machines. I'm looking at this betting this is probably pretty easy to get hurt on. And we came across these rows of little cubby holes full of shoes and other personal stuff. Now, pardon the pun, but I kind of felt like the souls of the workers were still hanging around there. I believe images capture better than words what it feels like to see time just stopped in its tracks. Another puzzling thing was that this place had not been trashed or hit by scrappers. I guess being in such a small town like Lonaconing, population 1,250 for like the last 20 or 30 years in the middle of nowhere, does have some benefits. You can kind of see that eerie green light in the background again as the light comes through all the vegetation. I found these items in the office on a radiator. 6 bottles of Coke for 25 cents, an old oil can, and some stylish shoes. You know, again, pardon the pun again, but this is the real thing. I'm sure an antique collector would relish this stuff, including the radiator they all sit on. So buckets everywhere caught water from leaking roofs, and more water came in the windows. This whole piece of history was rotting away before our eyes. I feel lucky to be able to see a place like this. At one time, these places were the fabric of American industry.